Standing 30 floors above Harbor Gate, I finally believed I was untouchable. I had purchased this silence with 7 years of disciplined distance and every dollar I had ever earned. But when my parents arrived at my door with my sister and her luggage, wearing their most dangerous smiles, I realized my mistake. I thought I had closed on a home, but to them, I had simply acquired a new asset for the family portfolio, and they intended to liquidate it. The ink was barely dry on the closing documents when the silence hit me. It was not the empty, hollow silence of loneliness, but the rich, heavy silence of ownership. I stood in the center of the living room on the 30th floor of the Skyglass residences, my shoes off, my toes pressing into the wide plank white oak floors that I had paid for with 7 years of blood, sweat, and strategic silence. I was 33 years old. I was a project director for one of the largest development firms in the state. And for the first time in my life, I was completely, legally, and physically unreachable. The agent, a sleek woman named Georgette, who wore perfumes that smelled like cold cash and vanilla, had left an hour ago. She had handed me a heavy magnetic keycard and a bottle of champagne, neither of which I had touched yet. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows that spanned the entire north wall. Below me, the city of Harbor Gate sprawled out like a circuit board of amber and white lights, the river cutting through the downtown district like a black ribbon. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. I did it. I whispered. I did not say it loud enough for the echo to catch. I was still learning that I was allowed to make noise here. I was still learning that this space, all 2,000 square feet of it, belonged to me alone. There was no mortgage cosigner. There was no family loan to be held over my head at Thanksgiving. There was just my signature, my bank account, and the terrifying, beautiful reality of solitude. Buying the Penthouse had been a military operation. I had treated it with the same level of classification I used for sensitive infrastructure bids at work. I had routed my mail to a private box 3 months prior. I had changed my phone number and given the new one to exactly 4 people. I had told my parents, Elaine and Grant Patterson, that I was renting a smaller place in the suburbs to save money. A lie they accepted because it fit their narrative of me. To them, I was always the one struggling to catch up, the one who needed guidance, the one who was not quite smart enough to handle real wealth. If they knew I had just closed on a property worth nearly $2 million, they would not see it as my success. They would see it as a resource. They would see a spare bedroom that belonged to my sister, an equity line that belonged to my father's debts, and a dining table that belonged to my mother's ego. I turned away from the window and looked at the kitchen. It was pristine, with marble waterfalls on the island and appliances that hummed with quiet efficiency. I had told 2 people. The first was Devin Sharp, my attorney. Devin was a man who viewed emotion as an inefficiency in the legal process. He had handled the purchase through a generic LLC to keep my name off the public resident directories. He had warned me, in his dry, gravelly voice, that family was often the greatest liability a high-net-worth individual could have. I had paid him a retainer to make sure he was right. The second was Marisol Green. My phone buzzed on the kitchen island, vibrating against the stone. It was Marisol. I answered, and I did not even have to say hello. "Are you in?" she asked. Her voice was tinny and excited, a burst of warmth in the cool air. "I am in," I said. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding since the inspection. "Marisol, it is quiet. It is so quiet. Do not cry," she ordered, though I could hear the smile in her voice. "If you cry on those floors before you spill wine on them, it is bad luck. I am coming over. I am bringing the good Pinot and a sage stick because I know you are already overthinking the feng shui." I laughed, and the sound surprised me. It sounded younger than I felt. "Come over," I said, "but take the service elevator if you bring the sage. The building manager is strict about smoke." Marisol arrived 40 minutes later, bringing a whirlwind of energy that made the empty apartment feel suddenly lived in. We sat on the floor of the living room, drinking red wine out of paper cups because I had not unpacked the stemware yet. We watched the lights of the city flicker and shift as the evening deepened into night. "You know you have to tell them eventually," Marisol said gently. She was not pushing, just stating a fact. She knew the history. She knew about the time my father borrowed my college fund to invest in a friend's restaurant that closed in 3 months. She knew about the credit cards my mother opened in my name when I was 18 to build my score, only to max them out on furniture for a house they lost to foreclosure a year later. "I do not have to tell them anything," I said, staring at the red wine swirling in my cup. "They think I am in a garden apartment in West Harborgate. Let them think that. They will find out. Anna, someone will see you, or your mom will use her scary radar. Let her use it," I said, feeling a flash of the old defensiveness. "The title is in a trust. The utilities are under the LLC, unless they hire a private investigator. I am a ghost." Marisol looked at me, her dark eyes serious. "Just be careful," she said. "Ghosts tend to haunt people. And your parents are very good at being haunted when it suits them." I slept that first night with the curtains open. I lay in the middle of my king-sized mattress, surrounded by boxes, and watched the moon track across the sky. I told myself I was safe. I told myself I was free. But at 3 a.m, I woke up with a start, my heart hammering against my ribs. I threw off the covers and walked barefoot to the front door, checking the heavy deadbolt. It was locked. I checked the secondary latch. Locked. I checked the service entrance in the laundry room. Locked. I stood in the hallway, shivering in my silk pajamas, rehearsing conversations in my head. "No, Dad, I cannot sign that. No, Mom, I do not have a spare key for you. No, Lily cannot stay here for a few months while she figures things out." I realized then that the apartment was new, but the fear was antique. I had bought a penthouse, but I had brought my ghosts with me. The first week was a study in sensory decompression. I went to work at the firm, managing million-dollar budgets and shouting down contractors who tried to cut corners on concrete pours. And then I came home to the sky glass. I developed a ritual. I would walk in, kick off my heels, and stand in the center of the living room for 5 minutes, doing absolutely nothing. I cooked in silence, chopping vegetables with a rhythm that felt like meditation. I took long showers in the master bath, where the water pressure was strong enough to peel the stress off my skin, but the anxiety habits lingered. I found myself checking my bank accounts 3 times a day, just to make sure the money for the mortgage payment had not mysteriously vanished. I flinched when my phone rang. On Thursday evening. The phone did ring. The screen lit up with a photo I had taken 5 years ago. Mom, Dad. I stared at it. The device felt heavy in my hand, like a grenade with the pin pulled. I let it ring 3 times before I answered, forcing my voice into a lower, calmer register. "Hello, Mom. Anna?" Elaine Patterson's voice was a melody of aggressive sweetness. It was the voice she used when she was at a church social or when she wanted something expensive. "We have not heard from you in days. I was starting to worry you had fallen off the edge of the earth. I have just been busy with work." "Mom, big project closing out. You know how it is." I was leaning against the kitchen island, my muscles tensed. I scanned the room as if she could see me through the phone line. Of course, she said. "You are always so busy. Your father was just saying that." He said, "Anna works too hard to be living in that little apartment." My stomach tightened. Here it was. The probe. "The apartment is fine. Mom, it is close to the office." "Is it?" She paused, and I could hear her taking a sip of something on the other end. Probably iced tea, or maybe white wine if it was a bad day. "We were driving through West Harborgate yesterday to see the Miller family. You remember the Millers, don't you? Their son just made partner at that law firm, and we thought about stopping by. But we realized we do not actually have your new address." I gripped the phone tighter. "I am not really settled yet." I lied. "It is a mess of boxes. I would hate for you to see it like this." "Oh, honey, we are family. We do not care about boxes." "I care," I said, keeping my tone light but firm. "I will have you over once I get the place decent. How is Dad? How is Lily?" I shifted the subject aggressively. a tactic I used in boardroom negotiations. Elaine sighed, a long, tragic exhale that signaled a shift in the weather. Well, you know, changes, family changes. She is going through a transition. She might need a change of scenery. The warning bells in my head went from a hum to a siren. Lily was 26, charming, chaotic, and perpetually transitioning between jobs, boyfriends, and crises. She was the golden child who could do no wrong, and also the victim who always needed saving. Is she okay? I asked, against my better judgment. She is fine, Elaine said quickly. Just some roommate drama. You know how girls can be. People are so jealous of her. It is exhausting. But listen, I did not call to burden you. I just wanted to hear your voice, and to ask, are you receiving mail at the new place yet? The question was sharp, precise. Yes, I said cautiously. Why? Oh, just a little something we sent. A housewarming thought. I sent it to your office since we did not have the home address. It should be there tomorrow. My office. Of course, it was the one fixed point they had. That is sweet. Mom, you did not have to do that. We are so proud of you. Anna, she said. Her voice dropped to a whisper, intimate and terrifying. You are the rock. You know that, right? You are the one we can count on. I hung up 5 minutes later and felt the need to shower again. I felt slimy, covered in the sticky residue of her expectations, the rock. That was what they called me when they needed to anchor themselves to my credit score. The package arrived at my office the next morning. It was not a casual Amazon box. It was a heavy cream-colored parcel with a wax seal. I sat at my desk, looking at the return label. From Patterson Family Trust Office, 1400 Oak Street, Suite B, Harborgate. I stared at the label for a full minute. There was no Patterson Family Trust. My parents lived in a rented condo in a mid-range development. They had zero assets to put in a trust. My father leased his car. My mother's jewelry was mostly high-end costume pieces she claimed were heirlooms. I reached for my letter opener and slit the seal. Inside was a black velvet box. I opened it to reveal a fountain pen. It was heavy, black lacquer with gold banding. It looked like a Mont Blanc, or a very good copy of one. I picked it up, engraved on the side. In elegant script were my initials, A. P. Underneath the pen was a card on thick, linen stock, to our Anna, for the new chapter. Success is a family endeavor. We are building the future together. Love, Mom and Dad. Patterson Family Trust. My hands were shaking. I did not know why. But the physical reaction was undeniable. It felt like a summons. It felt like a contract I hadn't signed. I picked up my office phone and dialed Devin Sharp's direct line. Sharp, he answered. Devin, it is Anna. I need you to look something up for me. I can hear your blood pressure from here. Anna, what is it? I read him the return address and the name, Patterson Family Trust Office. Hold on, he said. I heard the clicking of his mechanical keyboard. He typed fast, violent strokes. Silence stretched for 30 seconds. Anna, he said, his voice dropping the lawyerly affectation for a moment. This is not a trust. There is no trust registered under that name in the state database. Then what is it? I asked, staring at the pen, the address. Devin said, 1400 Oak Street, Suite B. That is a mail drop, a UPS store or something similar. And the name. It looks like a DBA, a doing business as filing. Someone registered the trade name Patterson Family Trust Office about 3 weeks ago. Who registered it? I would have to pull the county clerk records to be sure. But I'm looking at the business license application online. It lists a Grant Patterson as the principal. My father. Why would he do that? I asked, feeling a cold knot form in my stomach. Why register a fake trust office? Devin paused. To make it look real, he said. To make private arrangements look official to third parties, banks, landlords, creditors. If you present yourself as a trust office, people assume there are assets. They assume there is old money. It is a way to borrow credibility, or to establish a narrative. I whispered, "Exactly. Anna, did you sign anything with them recently? Anything at all? A birthday card? A receipt?" "No, nothing. Keep the packaging." Devon instructed, "Keep the pen. Keep the note. Do not respond to it. Do not say thank you. If you acknowledge the trust, you might inadvertently validate it in some twisted legal way. Just put it in a drawer." I hung up and looked at the pen. It caught the fluorescent light of my office. It looked expensive. It looked permanent. I put it back in the velvet box and shoved it into the deepest corner of my desk drawer, behind a stack of structural engineering reports. My phone buzzed again just as I was leaving the office. A text from Lily. "Hey sis, so sorry I've been weird lately. Mom is stressing me out, lol. Do you have a guest room at the new place? Just in case?" I stopped walking in the middle of the lobby. People flowed around me, a river of gray suits and briefcases, but I stood frozen. Just in case, I stared at the screen. I loved my sister. I truly did, when we were children. I used to hide her in my closet when our parents started fighting about money. I used to buy her lunch with my babysitting money because Mom forgot to pack one. But I knew Lily. I knew that she was porous. Whatever our parents poured into her, she leaked out. She could not keep a secret, and she could not hold a boundary. If Lily came into my home, my parents would follow. It was a law of physics. A second text popped up before I could reply. "Ignore me. Sorry." That was rude. "Just venting." "Love you." She had backtracked. Why? Had Mom told her to ask? Had she realized it sounded too desperate? I typed back, keeping it neutral. "Love you too. Lil, let's grab coffee next week." I did not answer the question about the guest room. I slipped the phone into my purse and walked out into the cool evening air. Hailing a cab. I did not want to take the subway. I wanted to be behind glass. Skyglass Residences held a new resident meet and greet on the first Thursday of every month in the lobby lounge. I had planned to skip it, but after the pen and the text, I felt a need to assess my perimeter. I needed to know who my neighbors were. I needed to know if I was truly invisible. The lounge was tasteful, decorated in neutrals and soft lighting. Waiters circulated with trays of hors d'oeuvres. I took a glass of sparkling water and stood near a pillar. Watching the room, a woman in a sharp navy blazer approached me. She had a tablet tucked under her arm and an air of hypercompetence. "Ms. Patterson?" she asked. I stiffened. "Yes, I am Celeste Huang, the building manager. We spoke briefly at your closing." "Yes, Celeste. Good to see you. I wanted to introduce myself properly," she said, offering a firm handshake. "And I wanted to welcome you. We are glad to have you. The building is very quiet. Usually, we value privacy here." "Thank you," I said. "That is exactly why I bought here." Celeste hesitated. Her eyes flicked down to her tablet and then back to my face. She lowered her voice slightly. "Actually, Ms. Patterson, since I have you, I wanted to double-check something. We had a call earlier today on the main concierge line." My heart stopped. "A call?" "Yes, a gentleman. He did not leave a name, but he said he was calling on behalf of your family office. He was asking about unit access rules, specifically, how to issue key fobs for immediate family members." The room seemed to tilt slightly. The jazz music playing in the background sounded distorted. "My family office?" I repeated. "Yes." He sounded very professional. He asked if there was a form to preemptively authorize parents for emergency access. I told him we do not give out information about residents or their security protocols over the phone. Obviously, but I wanted to flag it for you. I took a sip of water to hide the tremor in my hand. "I do not have a family office. Celeste." Celeste's expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened. She nodded once. I suspected as much. The terminology he used was unusual. He asked about residency establishment protocols. Most people just ask for a spare key. Residency establishment protocols, that was legal jargon. That was specific. "Celeste," I said, looking her dead in the eye, "no one is authorized to access my unit. No one? Not my parents? Not a sister? not a family office. If anyone shows up trying to get in, I want them stopped at the desk. Done, she said instantly. I will put a flag on your file right now. Hard perimeter. We call the police if they refuse to leave. Thank you. She touched my arm lightly. It happens more than you think, Ms. Patterson. Money makes people creative. You are safe here. I nodded, but I did not feel safe. I felt hunted. I went upstairs and locked the door. I threw the deadbolt. I engaged the chain. I went straight to my home office. The second bedroom I had converted into a workspace. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. The glow of the screen was the only light in the room. Residency establishment. Patterson Family Trust. Just in case. It was not a coincidence. It was a campaign. I logged into my email, not my current one, but the old Gmail account I had used in college and my early 20s. The one my parents had the password to in case of emergencies back when I was 22 and foolish. I had changed the password years ago, but I had never deleted the history. I searched for keywords, credit, application, housing, nothing recent. Then I searched for inquiry. I scrolled back through years of junk mail and newsletters, and then I saw it. A notification from a credit monitoring service I had signed up for 5 years ago and forgotten about. Date: 3 years ago. Subject: New inquiry alert. I clicked it. Agency: North Pine Rental Services. Inquiry type: hard pull. Applicant address: 4402 Maple Drive. Maple Drive was my parents' address. I stared at the screen. 3 years ago, I was living in a studio apartment downtown. I had never applied to North Pine Rental Services. I had never authorized a hard pull. I clicked on the details. The application had listed me as a guarantor. My parents had tried to use my credit to co-sign something 3 years ago, and I had never known because the inquiry alert went to an old email I rarely checked. I sat back in my chair, the leather creaking in the silence. This was not just about them wanting to be close to me. This was not just about Lily needing a room. This was logistical. They were trying to establish a pattern of shared residency. If they could prove they had access, if they could prove they received mail here, if they could prove they were family members with rights, they could use my address as collateral. They could use my asset to leverage their debts. I looked at the phone on my desk. I could call them. I could scream. I could drive over to their condo and throw the fountain pen at my father's head. But I was a project director. I did not scream at contractors when the steel was late. I looked at the contract. I looked at the penalties. I built a case. I opened a new spreadsheet. I typed the date. I typed Incident 1, the pen/fake trust. I typed Incident 2, Lily's text/request for housing. I typed Incident 3, call to Skyglass/attempted access authorization. I typed Incident 4, unauthorized credit inquiry, historical. I saved the file as OP defense log. I did not confront anyone. I did not text Lily back. I did not call my mother. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. The city was still shining below me, indifferent to my small, quiet war. I placed my hand on the glass. You want to trust? I whispered to the reflection of the empty room. I will give you a paper trail. I went to the kitchen and made a cup of tea. I drank it standing up. Then I went to bed, checked the locks twice, and lay in the dark with my eyes wide open, waiting for the next move. Saturday arrived with a deception of peace. The sky over Harbor Gate was a bruised purple color, threatening rain. But inside the penthouse, the air was still and temperature controlled to a perfect 70 degrees. I had spent the morning reading a dossier on the waterfront redevelopment project. Sitting cross-legged on my new beige sofa, feeling the luxury of uninterrupted time, I had not spoken to my parents in 4 days. I had not replied to Lily's follow-up texts. I was building a wall, brick by silence. Brick. Then, the doorbell rang. It was not the sharp digital chirp of the building intercom. It was the physical chime of the unit door itself. I froze. To get to my door, a person had to pass the 24-hour concierge. the secure elevator bank which required a fob for floor access, and the secondary glass door in the hallway. I set my tablet down on the coffee table. I walked to the door in my socks, my heart performing a traitorous double-time rhythm against my ribs. I checked the video monitor mounted on the wall. The camera feed was crisp, high definition, and undeniable. Standing in my hallway were my mother, my father, and my sister. Elaine was wearing her church and brunch coat, a camel hair trench that she had bought at an outlet 5 years ago and kept pristine. Grant was in a blazer that was slightly too tight across the shoulders, and Lily was standing between them, looking at the floor, flanked by 2 large, black rolling suitcases. My father was holding something square and wrapped in brown paper under his arm. I stared at the screen for 10 seconds. I could not breathe. They looked like they were waiting for an Uber. Not standing outside the fortress I had spent my life savings to build. I debated not opening the door. I could call security. I could watch them ring the bell until they gave up. But I knew them. Elaine would start knocking. Then she would start calling my name. Then she would start crying loud enough for the neighbors to hear. They thrived on the spectacle because they knew I would pay any price to avoid it. I unlocked the deadbolt. I opened the door. "Surprise!" Elaine cried out. She threw her arms wide, as if she were greeting an audience. Her smile was bright, brittle, and terrifying. "We took a chance you were home," Grant added, booming the words as he stepped forward. He did not wait for an invitation. He moved to cross the threshold, his body leading with the confidence of a man who believes he owns every room he walks into. I did not step back. I planted my feet on the oak floorboards and held the edge of the door, creating a physical barricade. "How did you get up here?" I asked. My voice was calm, but it sounded thin in my own ears. "Oh, a very nice young man held the elevator," Elaine said, waving her hand dismissively. "People are so friendly here. Much better than that grim little place you used to rent." Grant tried to push past me again, gently this time, using his shoulder as a wedge. "Anna, let us in. For heaven's sake, do not make your sister stand in the hallway. She is exhausted." I looked at Lily. She was wearing gray sweatpants and a denim jacket. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she looked pale. She refused to meet my eyes. She was gripping the handle of one of the suitcases so hard her knuckles were white. "What is going on?" I asked. I did not move. Elaine's smile faltered, replaced by a look of performative concern. She clasped her hands together. "It is a situation. Honey, a safety issue. Lily's apartment. Well, it is just not tenable. We can explain everything. But we need to come in and sit down. We brought lunch." She held up a paper bag from a bakery I knew she could not afford. I looked at the suitcases, 2 of them. Those were not overnight bags. Those were move-in bags. I cannot have guests right now. I said, "I am working." Grant laughed. A short, sharp bark. "Guests? We are your parents. Anna, and your sister is in a crisis. Now move aside." He lifted the brown-wrapped square he was holding. "I brought this for the foyer. It is the portrait from the lake house, the one everyone loves. It needs a good wall. The lake house, the one they sold 10 years ago to pay off a business misunderstanding. The portrait was of the 4 of us, smiling in white linen, taken the summer before everything fell apart. He wanted to hang a lie in my entryway. "No," I said. The word hung in the air, heavy and solid. Grant stopped moving. Elaine's face froze. Lily flinched. "Excuse me?" Grant said. His voice dropped an octave. It lost the jovial fatherly timbre and became the voice of the man who used to scream at bank tellers. "I said no," I repeated. I felt the nausea rising in my throat, the old childhood sickness that came whenever I defied them. But I swallowed it down. "You cannot just show up here with luggage. I am not set up for house guests. It is just for a couple of weeks." Lily spoke up suddenly. Her voice was small, scratchy. "My lease fell through. Anna, the landlord is selling the building and he gave me 3 days' notice. It is illegal, I know, but I did not want to fight him. A lease issue. That was the script. Mom said it was a safety issue," I said. Looking at Elaine, Lily says it is a lease issue. Which is it? Elaine's eyes flashed with danger. Do not cross-examine your sister. Anna, she is fragile. She has had a terrible week. We are trying to protect her. Then let us get her a hotel. I said. I pulled my phone from my pocket. There is a Marriott 3 blocks over. I will book a suite for her. For 3 nights. I will pay for it right now. I tapped the screen, my fingers trembling slightly. Elaine let out a sound that was half gasp, half sob. A hotel? You would put your own sister in a hotel? Like a stranger? It is comfortable. Mom, it is safe. It is cold, Elaine snapped. She stepped closer, invading my personal space. The expensive perfume she wore, a gift I had bought her for Christmas, filled my nose. This is family. Anna, we do not outsource family to a hotel when you have a penthouse with empty bedrooms. I know you have the space. We saw the floor plan online. You looked up my floor plan? We take an interest in your life, Grant shouted. He was losing patience. He set the framed picture down on the floor of the hallway with a heavy thud. Look at you. Standing there like a bouncer? You think because you made a little money you are too good for us? Is that it? I am not too good for you, I said. I am just saying no. Grant shook his head, looking at me with profound disappointment. It is a phase. Elaine, I told you. She gets a little success, and she thinks she is an island. You will regret this. Anna, when you are old and alone in this glass box, you will regret turning your back on the only people who actually care if you live or die. He changed tactics then. I watched the shift happen in real time. He softened his shoulders. He put on the reasonable face. Anna. Look, he said, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Let us be sensible. A family arrangement makes sense. Lily needs stability. You need someone to look after the place when you travel. Lily can contribute. She can pay. What she can. And your mother and I will handle the rest. We will manage the household accounts. We can consolidate the bills. It is efficient. Handle the rest. Consolidate the bills. The words triggered a memory so sharp it stung. When I was 22, they had offered to consolidate my student loans. I found out 6 months later they had deferred the payments and used the saved money to lease a BMW. I am not looking for a roommate, I said, and I manage my own bills. I looked down at Lily's suitcase. It was a black Samsonite, scuffed at the corners. Tied to the handle was a piece of white plastic. I focused on it. It was a hospital discharge bracelet. It was looped prominently around the handle. The text facing outward. I could see the word Patterson and a date from 2 days ago. Lily saw me looking. She quickly reached down and twisted the tag to the underside of the handle, her face flushing red. What happened? I asked, pointing at the tag. Were you in the hospital? Lily opened her mouth, but Elaine cut in. Stress, Elaine said darkly. Physical exhaustion. The doctor said she needs rest. She needs family. And you are standing here offering her a Marriott. The inconsistency hit me like a physical blow. If Lily had been in the hospital for exhaustion, why was she dragging 2 50-pound suitcases? Why did she look embarrassed instead of sick? The tag was real. I was sure of that. But its placement felt staged. It was a prop. It was there to be discovered. It was there to make me feel like a monster for keeping the door closed. They had weaponized her health. I am booking the room, I said. I felt a cold clarity wash over me. I am sending the confirmation number to Lily's phone. If she does not want it, that is her choice. But she is not sleeping here. I stepped back and started to close the door. Anna! Elaine screamed. It was a raw, ugly sound. Do not you dare close this door on your mother. I love you, I said, my voice flat. But no, I shut the door. I threw the deadbolt. I leaned my back against the wood, breathing hard, listening. On the other side, there was silence for a moment. Then, a heavy thud. Someone kicking the door? Or maybe Grant picking up the picture. Ungrateful. I heard my father mutter. It was muffled, but audible. Let us go, Elaine said. Her voice was icy, controlled. She will come around. She always breaks. I listened to the rumble of the suitcases rolling away down the corridor. I listened until the elevator chimed and the doors slid shut. Only then did I slide down to the floor and put my head in my hands. I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. I sat there for 20 minutes, terrified that if I moved, they would somehow materialize back on the other side of the wood. My phone chimed 30 minutes later. I flinched. It was an email notification, not a text from my parents. An email from Skyglass Concierge Services. Subject: New authorized visitor added. Confirmation. I stared at the screen. I scrambled up from the floor and ran to my laptop in the office. I opened the email. Dear Ms. Patterson, this email is to confirm that Elaine Patterson has been successfully added to your unit's permanent access list as of 11:15 a.m. today. 2 key fobs have been requested and will be ready for pickup at the front desk within 24 hours. Please find the signed authorization form attached. My stomach dropped. I opened the attachment. It was a PDF of the building's standard security form. There, at the bottom, was a signature. Anna Patterson. It was a digital scribble. It looked nothing like my signature. It looked like someone had used a finger on an iPad. I looked at the timestamp. 11:10 a.m. That was 10 minutes before they appeared at my door. They had stopped at the desk downstairs. They had probably told the concierge that I was running late, or in the shower, and asked to fill out the paperwork to save time. One of them, probably Grant, with his confident bluster, had signed my name. They had tried to gain legal access to my home before they even said hello. I grabbed my phone and dialed Devin. He answered on the second ring. It is happening. I said, I did not bother with pleasantries. They just left. They tried to move Lily in. And Devin, they forged my signature on an access form with the building. Slow down, Devin said. His voice was sharp, cutting through my panic. Forged your signature? You are sure? I am looking at the PDF. They added my mother as a permanent resident. They requested key fobs. Okay, Devin said. Listen to me carefully. This is no longer a family dispute. This is identity theft and fraud. You need to treat it as such. I cannot arrest my parents. Devin, I am not asking you to arrest them yet. I am telling you to build the fence higher. You need to file an internal security incident report with Skyglass immediately. Use the word fraud. Do not say misunderstanding. Say unauthorized. And Anna? Yes? Freeze your credit. Right now. All 3 bureaus. If they are bold enough to sign your name in a lobby full of cameras, they are bold enough to open a line of credit in your name to pay for their consulting fees. I hung up and walked downstairs to the lobby. My hands were steady now. The anger had burned away the fear. Celeste Huang was behind the desk, typing. She looked up as I approached, her professional smile in place. Ms. Patterson, she said, I saw your family came by. Did they find you? Celeste. I said, I placed my phone on the marble counter, displaying the PDF. I did not sign this. Celeste stopped. She looked at the screen, then up at my face. Her smile vanished. Excuse me? I did not sign this form. I said clearly. My parents filled this out without my consent. I did not authorize them. I want this removed from my file immediately. And I want to file a security incident report. For a second, I felt the old nausea. The memory of being 16, telling the school guidance counselor that my father had taken my summer wages, and seeing the look of doubt in her eyes. But he is such a nice man. Anna, are you sure you didn't lend it to him? I waited for Celeste to tell me I was overreacting. I waited for her to say, but they are your parents. Celeste did not do that. She turned to her computer. She typed a rapid series of commands. I am deleting the authorization now, she said, her voice clipped and efficient. I am flagging the file. ID verification required for all changes, and I am canceling the fob request. She looked up at me. Her eyes were hard. Ms. Patterson, this is a serious breach. The concierge who accepted this, Kevin, he should have verified your ID in person. He will be disciplined. Do you want us to ban them from the building? I hesitated. A ban meant the police would be called if they stepped foot in the lobby. Yes, I said. If they come back, they are not to be let up. They are not to be announced. Understood. She printed a sheet of paper. This is the incident report. Write down exactly what you told me. Unauthorized signature. It protects you if they try to claim they live here later. I took the pen. I wrote the words. My parents attempted to falsify residency documents. It felt like I was signing a declaration of war. That evening, I could not stay in the apartment. The silence felt heavy, charged with the memory of their pounding on the door. I took the elevator down to the communal terrace on the 15th floor. The air was cold and damp. I stood by the railing, wrapping my cashmere cardigan tighter around myself. Rough day? I turned. A man was standing a few feet away, holding a tumbler of amber liquid. He was in his 50s, wearing a gray turtleneck and architectural glasses. He looked like the kind of man who designed museums. I have had better, I said. I am Rowan, he said. Rowan Bell. Unit 1504. Anna Patterson. Penthouse B. Ah, the new arrival. Rowan smiled. It was a kind smile, weathered by life. I saw the commotion in the lobby earlier. The older couple with the luggage. My face burned. You saw that? Hard to miss. The gentleman was quite vocal. He was telling the doorman that he owns the penthouse, said he bought it for his daughter. I gripped the railing. He did not buy it. I said, I did. I figured, Rowan said. He took a sip of his drink. I am an architect. Anna, I work with a lot of high net worth families. I have seen that dynamic before. The royal we? The royal we? We bought the house. We have the money. We are successful. It is a way of absorbing your autonomy. He turned to lean his back against the railing, looking at me. I once worked on a project in Greenwich. A client's father moved into the pool house for a weekend and stayed for 2 years. By the time they tried to evict him, he had mail sent there. He had a driver's license with the address. He claimed tenancy rights. It took 6 months and $40,000 in legal fees to get him out. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. Tenancy rights. I whispered. Rowan nodded. Establishing residency. It is a game. If they sleep there, if they get mail there, if they have a key, the law gets very murky. It stops being trespassing and starts being a civil dispute. Police hate civil disputes. They walk away. He looked at me significantly. If I were you, I would keep everything in writing, every text, every email, and do not let them stay, not even for one night. One night is the toe in the door. They are not staying. I said, Good. Rowan toasted me with his glass. Protect your perimeter. Anna, no one else will. I went back upstairs and called Mara Quinn. Devin had recommended her. He said she was a private investigator who specialized in forensic accounting and family complexities. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was raspy, like she had spent too much time smoking in stakeout cars. Patterson, she said, I was just about to email you. Did you find something? I asked. I did. Mara paused. I heard the rustle of papers. You asked me to look into the Patterson Family Trust and your father's recent employment. Yes. Well, the trust is bogus, obviously, but the employment is interesting. Your father has been telling people he is a consultant, right? Yes. He is listed as a senior client advisor for a firm called North Pine Equity Services. North Pine. The name from the credit inquiry I had found in my old email. I know that name. I said, They pulled my credit 3 years ago. I am not surprised. Mara said, I ran a background on North Pine. They are not a standard equity firm. They are a bottom feeder operation. They specialize in distressed asset restructuring. What does that mean? It means they find people who are drowning in debt, people with assets but no cash flow, and they offer to restructure them. Usually, that involves transferring deeds, signing over power of attorney, and bringing in family members as guarantors. They target desperate people who want to keep up appearances. I felt a cold dread settling in my stomach. My parents are the desperate people. I said, Exactly. Your father is not just working for them. Anna. He is a client who got converted into a recruiter. It is a classic pyramid structure. If he brings in new assets, new clients, new collateral, he gets a break on his own debts. I closed my eyes. The pieces clicked together. The sudden interest in my life, the expensive pen, the urgency to move Lily in. They do not just want to live here. I realized they want the address. If Lily lives there, Mara continued, and if your parents are managing the household accounts like they suggested, they can list your penthouse as a family asset on their North Pine applications. They can claim you are a silent partner. They can leverage your equity to refinance their own bad loans. But they cannot do that without my signature. Mara laughed, a dry, cynical sound. They already forged your signature on a visitor log. Anna, why do you think they would stop there? If they get Lily in, they have a physical footprint. They have mail. They have proof of a shared household. North Pine does not check land records closely. They just want a paper trail that looks good enough to bundle into a debt package and sell off. I looked around my beautiful, silent apartment. It wasn't a home to them. It was a life raft. And they were trying to drag me aboard before they sank. So the move-in. It was not about Lily. I said, no. Mara said, Lily is the Trojan horse. She is the sympathetic wedge. Once she is in, the parents follow, and once the parents follow, North Pine follows. I thanked her and hung up. I walked to the window. The city lights were blurring in the mist. I touched the cold glass. I realized then that I had been wrong about the scale of the threat. I thought I was dealing with emotional blackmail, guilt trips and holidays, but this was an extraction operation. My parents had looked at my life, my success, my stability, and they had not felt pride. They had felt hunger. They had come to feast. I went to my defense log. I typed, Incident 5, Attempted Forced Entry / Hospital Tag Ruse. Incident 6, Forged Signature on Security Documents. Incident 7, North Pine Connection Confirmed. Predatory Lending Scheme. I saved the file. Then I opened my contacts and blocked my mother's number. I blocked my father's number. I left Lily's unblocked. I sent her one message. I know about the hospital tag, and I know about North Pine. Do not come back here. Lily, for your own sake. I put the phone down. I did not check the locks twice that night. I checked them 3 times, and then I pushed a heavy armchair in front of the front door, just in case. The invitation came via email on a Tuesday morning, 3 days after I had blocked their numbers. Subject, peace offering, dinner at L'Argent, Thursday, 7 p.m. It was sent from my father's email address, but the syntax was pure Elaine. The message was brief, devoid of the usual passive-aggressive flourishes. It simply stated that they wanted to talk like adults and clear the air regarding the misunderstanding at my door. I stared at the screen. L'Argent was the most expensive steakhouse in Harborgate. It was a place of dark mahogany, blood-red leather booths, and steaks that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. My parents could not afford L'Argent, not unless they were charging it to a credit card they intended to default on. Or, and this thought chilled me, they were celebrating a windfall I did not yet know about. I forwarded the email to Mara Quinn. Should I go? I typed. Her reply came back in 2 minutes. Yes. Intel gathering. Do not sign anything. Do not drink more than 1 glass of wine. And record it. I accepted the invitation. I arrived at L'Argent at 7 o'clock sharp. I was wearing my armor, a charcoal structural blazer, black trousers, and heels sharp enough to puncture a tire. I had spent the afternoon in meetings with structural engineers, arguing about load-bearing capacities, and I carried that energy with me. I was not the daughter coming to apologize. I was the project director coming to inspect a failing site. The maitre d' led me through the hushed dining room. The air smelled of truffle oil and old money. I saw them in a semicircular booth in the back corner. Elaine was wearing a black dress with pearls, her bereaved but dignified look. Grant was in his best suit, his face flushed with the rosy glow of a man on his second scotch. Lily sat between them, staring at the white tablecloth as if it were a fascinating text. But there was a 4th person at the table. He was a man in his late 30s, sleek and polished, with hair that was gelled into a helmet of obedience. He wore a suit that fit too perfectly, the kind of tailoring that screams consultant rather than executive. I stopped at the edge of the table. "Anna!" Elaine exclaimed, half rising. She reached for my hands, but I kept them firmly on my purse. "We are so glad you came." "Who is this?" I asked. I did not sit down. Grant gestured grandly with his glass. "This is Wesley Crowe. He is he is a friend of the family, a trusted advisor." Wesley Crowe stood up. His smile was dazzling white, practiced, and entirely devoid of warmth. "Ms. Patterson," he said, extending a hand. "A pleasure. Your father speaks of nothing else. I understand you are quite the success story in the development world." I did not take his hand. "I was told this was a family dinner," I said to my father. "It is," Wesley interjected smoothly. He sat back down, unbothered by my rudeness. "I am here merely to facilitate. Sometimes families need a neutral party to help translate the complexities of modern asset management. Please, sit. The Wagyu is exceptional tonight." I sat, but I did not slide all the way into the booth. I sat on the edge, ready to leave. I placed my phone on the table, face down, but not before I tapped the record button on my voice memo app. "So," I said, looking at Wesley, "you are with the Patterson Family Trust?" Wesley chuckled, a soft, dry sound, a figure of speech. He said, "I am a senior consultant with North Pine Equity Services. We specialize in holistic family wealth consolidation and distress alleviation." "Distress alleviation," I repeated. "Is that what we are calling it?" "Anna, please," Elaine hissed. "Be polite. Wesley is trying to help us. Help all of us." The waiter arrived. I ordered an iced tea. Grant ordered a bottle of Cabernet that I knew cost $300. "So," Wesley began, clasping his hands on the table, "let us speak plainly. Your parents are very proud of you. They see what you have built at Skyglass, a penthouse, equity, a strong credit profile. It is impressive. Thank you. However," he continued, leaning forward, "success in a vacuum is vulnerable. In today's economy, isolated assets are at risk. We advise our clients, families like yours, to view their collective holdings as a single ecosystem, synergy, protection through consolidation." He was using buzzwords like a shield. I recognized the tactic. It was designed to make the listener feel stupid, to make them nod along to avoid admitting they did not understand the gibberish. I took out my phone. I flipped it over. I opened the Notes app. "I am going to take notes," I said calmly, "for my own records. Please continue." Wesley blinked. The rhythm of his pitch faltered for a microsecond. "Of course," he said. "As I was saying, your sister Lily is currently in a transitional housing period. She lost her lease." I said, looking at Lily. "That is what I was told." Lily did not look up. She was shredding a bread roll into tiny white flakes on her plate. "Technically, yes," Wesley said, "but viewed holistically. This is an opportunity. If Lily were to establish residency with you at Skyglass, it would not just be a favor, it would be a strategic move. By formalizing the arrangement, creating a shared household entity, we could structure a protection package that benefits everyone. Structure a protection package." I said as I typed the words, "Structure equals leverage. And what exactly are we protecting against?" "Market volatility," Wesley said quickly. "Liability, unforeseen creditors." "Unforeseen creditors," I said, "like the ones my parents currently have?" Grant slammed his hand on the table. It wasn't hard enough to break glass, but it was hard enough to make the silverware jump. "Enough with the interrogation. Anna, we are trying to offer you a partnership. You think you are the only one who understands business? Wesley here handles portfolios for half the doctors in the county." I looked at Wesley. His eyes were hard, calculating. He was assessing me. He realized I was not the terrified daughter he had been promised. "I have a question," I said. My voice was low, steady. "Why did Lily lose her lease?" Silence. The air around the table grew thick. Elaine laughed nervously. "Oh, it was just a misunderstanding with the landlord. He sold the building." I looked at Lily. Lily, I said, why did you lose your lease? Lily looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked at Wesley, then at Grant. She looked terrified. Tell her. Lily, Grant said warningly. Tell her about the unfair situation. I tried to start a business, Lily whispered. A business? A boutique. Online. Vintage clothing. I signed a lease for a workspace. An inventory. And it did not work, she said, her voice cracking. The supplier was a scam. I lost the money. But I had signed a personal guarantee on the commercial lease. They came after my apartment. They garnished my wages. I am being evicted. Anna, it is not just a lease ending. It is an eviction judgment. I felt a pang of sympathy, sharp and genuine. Lily had tried. She had failed. Yes, but she had tried to build something. And where does North Pine come in? I asked, turning back to Wesley. Mr. Crow helped me, Lily said. He stopped the immediate seizure. He said if I could show stability, if I could show a new, secure address with a solvent co-resident, then the debt could be restructured. Wesley finished. We can roll Lily's liabilities into a new, consolidated family instrument, but we need a collateral base, a primary residence with substantial equity. My penthouse. They wanted to use my home as the anchor for Lily's bad debt, and, I suspected, for Grant and Elaine's hidden debts as well. So, I said, typing furiously, you want me to let Lily move in so you can list my address on a refinancing application. You want to tie my property to her default judgment. No, asset protection, Wesley corrected. We would create a trust. You would simply be a trustee who is liable. I said. Wesley smiled. A thin reptile smile. Family helps family. Ms. Patterson, surely you do not want your sister's credit ruined for 7 years over a simple mistake. I put my phone down. I want to see the paperwork. I said. Wesley reached into his briefcase. He pulled out a sleek blue folder. I took it. I did not open it. I will have my attorney review this. I said. Wesley's hand shot out and covered the folder. These are proprietary drafts, he said. They cannot leave the table. Standard NDA protocol. Then I cannot sign them. I said. And I cannot agree to them. I pulled the folder out from under his hand. He let go. Surprised by the physical resistance, I slipped it into my tote bag. That is theft, Wesley said, his voice dropping to a hiss. It is discovery, I said. Grant stood up. He was red in the face. You are selfish. Anna, he shouted. People turned to look. He did not care. You sit there in your ivory tower, judging us. Who paid for your braces? Who paid for your piano lessons? Who drove you to swim practice at 5 a.m. for 10 years? I did not move. We sacrificed everything for you, Grant yelled. We gave you the foundation to build that life, and now, when the family needs a little stability, just a signature, just a room, you act like we are criminals. You owe us this stability. You owe us. It was the speech. The greatest hits of Grant Patterson. I had heard it when I was 12 and wanted to go to summer camp. I had heard it when I was 18 and chose a state school over the private one they couldn't afford. You owe us. I stood up. I was taller than Elaine in my heels. I looked my father in the eye. I owe you respect. I said, I do not owe you my financial future, and I definitely do not owe you my home. I looked at Lily. I will help you find a lawyer for the eviction. I said, I will pay for it, but you are not moving into Skyglass, and you are not signing anything this man gives you. I turned to Wesley. If you contact me again, or if you attempt to use my address on any document, I will report North Pine to the State Attorney General's office for predatory lending practices. I threw a $20 bill on the table for my iced tea. Enjoy the Wagyu, I said. I walked out. I did not look back, but I heard the silence I left behind, and it was louder than the shouting. I went straight to a dive bar 3 blocks away, a place called the Rusty Anchor, where the floor was sticky and the lighting was forgiving. Marisol was waiting for me in a back booth. She had a tequila soda waiting. You look like you just killed someone, she said as I slid into the seat. I feel like I just narrowly avoided being murdered. I said, I took a long drink. I told her everything. The dinner, Wesley Crowe, Lily's eviction, the folder in my bag. Let me see the folder. Marisol said. I handed it to her. She flipped through the pages. Her eyebrows shot up. Anna, she said, this is not a trust agreement. This is a co-residency and joint liability assumption. Look at this clause. She pointed to a paragraph in fine print. The primary resident, A. Patterson, agrees to indemnify the secondary resident, L. Patterson, against all pre-existing commercial liabilities. They were trying to transfer her business debt to you, Marisol said, and look at the consulting fee. North Pine takes 15% of the consolidated asset value up front. 15% of my penthouse? I asked, horrified. That is $300,000. Marisol nodded grimly. My cousin worked for these guys. Briefly, he quit because he said he couldn't sleep at night. He told me they call it the buffer strategy. The buffer strategy? They find a family member with a clean record. The buffer. They use guilt to get them to sign on as a co-resident or guarantor. Then they bundle all the family's bad debt, credit cards, failed businesses, car loans, and attach it to the buffer's assets. They take their fee out of the buffer's equity, and when the payments become impossible, the buffer is the one who gets foreclosed on. The original debtors, your parents, walk away claiming they were just victims of the market. I felt sick. It was methodical. It was a machine designed to harvest my life. They were going to eat me alive. I whispered. Marisol reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Not if we bite back, she said. The next morning, I was in Devon Sharp's office. The room was lined with books, smelling of old paper and expensive advice. I had the folder, I had my notes, and I had a new piece of information from Mara Quinn. Mara had called me at 6 a.m. Check your medical records, she had said, and your old bank accounts. Why? Because I found a pattern. Your mother didn't just try to add herself to the building list. She has been listing you as her emergency contact on everything for the last 5 years. Hospitals, banks, utility companies. That is not illegal. I had said, no, but it creates a paper narrative. Mara explained. When a debt collector skips tracing someone, they look for linked addresses. If your name pops up as the contact on 10 different accounts, it looks like an association. It makes you look involved. It softens the ground for when they eventually try to claim you are financially responsible. It is grooming. Anna, financial grooming. I told all of this to Devon. He sat behind his massive oak desk, his face unreadable. He tapped a silver pen against his legal pad. Okay, Devon said finally. We are done playing defense. What do? We build a firewall, he said. A legal moat so wide they cannot cross it without drowning. He started writing on a whiteboard. Step 1, he said. We transfer the penthouse. Transfer it? To whom? To a new entity, right now. It is in an LLC that traces back to you. We are going to move it into a blind trust with an independent trustee. Me, if they search public records. If North Pine runs a check, your name vanishes from the deed. You become a tenant of your own property. It protects the asset from any family law claims or residency arguments. Do it, I said. Step 2, Devon said. Cease and desist. Not a polite letter, a cannon shot. I will draft a formal notice to North Pine Equity Services, citing the specific statutes regarding predatory lending and elder financial abuse. We will copy the State Banking Commission. We will let Mr. Crowe know that if he proceeds with any application involving your name, we will audit every deal he has done in the last decade. He will back off. I said, he is a coward. He is a cockroach. Devon corrected. He hates the light. We are going to turn on the sun. And step 3? I asked. Step 3 is Skyglass, Devon said. I am sending a formal legal notice to the management company. We are putting them on notice that any unauthorized entry allowed by their staff will result in a lawsuit for negligence and breach of security. That will scare them enough to post a guard at your door if they have to. I nodded. It felt good. It felt like concrete pouring into a foundation. But there is one more thing, Devin said. He capped his marker and looked at me. What? Your sister? He said. I looked down at my hands. Lily. The girl who had twisted the hospital tag to hide it. The girl who had looked at the tablecloth while our father shouted. She is trapped. I said. She is a co-conspirator. Devin said gently. You have to remember that. She may be reluctant, but she is participating. She is scared. I argued. She is 26, and she is being crushed by a judgment she does not understand. My parents are using her as a shield. So what do you want to do? Devin asked. Do you want to burn her down with them? Because the cease and desist will name her too. It has to. She is the party seeking residency. I thought about the night she taught me how to braid hair. I thought about the text message. Just in case. I want to separate her. I said, I want to cut the cord between her and them. I do not want to destroy her. I want to give her an exit ramp. Devin sighed. That is harder. That requires precision. I am a project director. I said, precision is what I do. I spent the next 3 days designing the confrontation. I treated it like a demolition plan. You do not just swing a wrecking ball. You identify the load-bearing columns and you plant charges. I needed witnesses. I needed documentation. And I needed a setting where screaming would not work. I called Tessa Lang. Tessa was a professional mediator I had used on a massive commercial dispute between two feuding developers. She was a woman of steel and velvet. She could smile while telling someone they were legally bankrupt. I explained the situation. You want me to mediate a family dinner? She asked, sounding skeptical. I want you to witness a settlement. I corrected. I'm going to invite them over. To the Penthouse. You are letting them in? One time, I said, under controlled conditions. If I just send the letters, they will keep coming back. They will bang on the door. They will call my boss. I need to end this in person. I need to show them the documents. I need them to see that the road is closed. And you want me there to ensure they do not physically attack you? I want you there because my father does not scream in front of strangers who look expensive. I said, he cares about appearances. Your presence forces him to behave. Tessa paused. I charge $400 an hour, she said. I will pay double if you bring your notary seal. I said, deal. On the night before the meeting, I sat in my living room. I had removed all the personal touches. I had put away the throw pillows. I had cleared the counters. I wanted the apartment to look cold. I wanted it to look like a bank vault, not a home. I had the fountain pen on the table, the gift from the Patterson Family Trust. I had never used it. I picked it up. It was heavy. I remembered something Marisol had said about spy gadgets she saw in a movie. A joke about hidden microphones. I twisted the barrel. It didn't unscrew. I pulled the cap off. Just a nib. I looked at the end of the barrel. There was a tiny seam. I went to the kitchen and got a rubber grip jar opener. I wrapped it around the end of the pen and twisted hard. It clicked. The end cap unscrewed. Inside, there was no ink cartridge. There was a small metallic cylinder. I shook it out into my hand. It was a micro SD card. My breath caught in my throat. I ran to my laptop. I inserted the card into the adapter. A folder popped up on the screen. Patterson_scans. I opened it. There were 50 files. I clicked the first one. It was a scan of my birth certificate. The next was a scan of my social security card. The next was a scan of my diploma. The next was a template. Patterson Family Trust. Ledger of assets. I scrolled down. I found a file named Anna_signature_sample.jpg. It was a high-resolution scan of a birthday card I had signed 3 years ago. They had cropped my signature, and then a folder named Correspondence. I opened it. It was full of letters drafted to various banks and agencies, letters I had never seen. To whom it may concern, please be advised that Anna Patterson has authorized the transfer of, to the leasing office. Please accept this letter as confirmation of income. They weren't just planning a scheme. They had a library. They had been digitizing my identity for years, storing it on this card, waiting for the moment they needed to print a new reality. The pen wasn't a gift. It was a backup drive. They had given it to me for safekeeping in my own house, probably thinking it was the safest place to hide the evidence of their theft of me. If their house was raided or they were evicted, the data would be safe with me, the victim. I felt a cold, hard rage settle in my chest. It was heavier than the grief. It was solid. I ejected the card. I put it in my safe. Then I typed a new document. Agenda for meeting. Tuesday, October 14th. 1. Review of unauthorized documentation. 2. Notification of legal action. 3. Separation of assets. I printed 4 copies. I walked to the window. The city was bright and indifferent. Come over. Mom and Dad, I whispered. Come see the view. The silence I had purchased was beginning to leak. It started on a Wednesday, a low-level hum of digital interference. I was sitting in my office at Kestrel Harbor Development Group, reviewing the structural specs for the South Pier renovation. When my phone buzzed, it was a text from Mrs. Gable, a woman who had taught me Sunday school 20 years ago and whom I had not spoken to since high school graduation. Thinking of you, Anna. I know career is important, but do not forget where you came from. A mother's heart is a fragile thing. I stared at the message. It was vague enough to be deniable, but specific enough to draw blood. An hour later, another text, this one from a cousin in Ohio I hadn't seen in a decade. Heard things are tough. Just remember, money comes and goes, but blood is forever. Call your mom. Then a message from my father's old golf partner. Your dad sounds broken up. Be the bigger person. Kid, it was a coordinated strike. Elaine had activated the network. She was painting a masterpiece of martyrdom in the suburbs, framing me as the cold, successful daughter who had abandoned her aging parents in their time of need. She would not be telling them about the attempted credit fraud or the forced entry. She would be telling them about my change in personality, my new lifestyle, and my cruelty. I did not reply to any of them. I archived the messages into a folder labeled evidence_harassment. But the smear campaign was just the artillery softening the ground. The infantry attack came at 2 p.m. My desk phone rang. The internal display read, Human Resources, Director. I frowned. I had a pristine record at Kestrel. I delivered projects under budget and ahead of schedule. HR only called me when I needed to approve a new hire or sign off on benefits. This is Anna. I answered. Anna. Hi, it is David in HR. Do you have a moment? Can you come down to my office? His voice was tight, formal. Is everything okay? David? I would prefer to discuss it in person. I walked down the hall, the carpet silencing my footsteps. My stomach was a knot of cold dread. I walked into David's office, a glass-walled fishbowl overlooking the harbor. He did not offer me coffee. He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. Anna, he began, folding his hands on top of a file. We received a disturbing phone call this morning. Regarding what? I asked. Regarding you, and your fitness for the upcoming travel schedule to the Berlin site. I stiffened. The Berlin project was my jewel. I had spent 6 months negotiating the contracts. I was scheduled to fly out in 2 weeks to oversee the groundbreaking. Who called? I asked, though I already knew. A man identifying himself as Grant Patterson, your father. I closed my eyes for a fraction of a second. David continued. He claimed there was a severe family emergency involving mental health issues. He stated that you were currently unstable and that you were legally required to remain in the state to handle family court matters. He suggested that if we sent you abroad, we would be liable for negligence. The room seemed to tilt. This was not just embarrassment. This was sabotage. My father was willing to torch my professional reputation to keep me within his reach. If I lost the Berlin assignment, I would lose my bonus. If I lost my bonus, my liquidity would drop. If my liquidity dropped, I would be vulnerable. It was tactical. I looked at David. I forced my face into a mask of absolute calm. David, I said, is there any legal documentation supporting this claim? A court order? A medical note? No, David admitted, but given the gravity of the allegations, there is no emergency, I said. And there are no court matters. My father is currently upset because I declined to co-sign a loan for him last week. David blinked. Oh. I reached into my bag and pulled out the incident report I had filed with Skyglass Security and the draft of the cease and desist letter Devon was preparing. I am currently dealing with a security issue involving my parents, I said, sliding the papers across the desk. They have attempted to gain unauthorized access to my home. This call to you is an escalation of that harassment. It is a domestic dispute that they are trying to weaponize against my employment. David picked up the Skyglass report. He read the words, attempted identity fraud and unauthorized entry. His shoulders relaxed, the tension of a potential lawsuit draining out of him. I see, he said. I am fully fit for duty. I said, I will be on that plane to Berlin. And I will have my attorney send a formal letter to the firm clarifying that my father has no authority to speak on my behalf. I am sorry. Anna, David said, handing the papers back. We had to take it seriously. You know how it is. I know. I said. I walked back to my office with my head high. But inside, I was shaking. They had crossed the line between private manipulation and public destruction. They did not care if I lost my job. In fact, they probably preferred it. An unemployed daughter was a dependent daughter. A dependent daughter could be controlled. I went to my computer. I opened my personal email. I typed a message to Lily. Meet me, tonight, 6 o'clock. The coffee press on 4th. Come alone, if you bring them. I leave. Lily was 10 minutes early. I saw her through the window of the cafe. She was sitting at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea as if it were the only warm thing in the world. She looked smaller than she had at the steakhouse. The bravado she had worn like a costume was gone. I bought a black coffee and sat down opposite her. She flinched when I pulled out the chair. Hi, she whispered. Hi, I said. I checked the door. No Grant, no Elaine, no Wesley Crowe. You did not bring the entourage, I noted. They think I am at a job interview, Lily said. She picked at the sleeve of her oversized sweater. Anna, I am sorry about the dinner. I am sorry about everything. Apologies do not fix credit scores. Lily, I said gently, and they do not stop Mom and Dad from calling my boss. She looked up, her eyes wide with shock. They called your boss? Today. They tried to get me pulled off the Berlin project. Lily put her face in her hands. Oh my God. I did not know. I swear. They just said they were going to apply pressure. I took a sip of my coffee. The bitterness was grounding. Lily, I said, I need you to tell me the truth, not the version Wesley wrote for you, the real truth. Why is it so urgent? Why now? Lily looked around the cafe. It was loud, full of students and freelancers. No one was listening to us. It is the audit, she said. Her voice was barely a breath. What audit? I asked. The State Charities Bureau. Lily said. I frowned. Mom and Dad do not run a charity. No, she said, but 2 years ago, they joined the board of that arts foundation. You know, the one the mayor's wife started? They wanted the social clout. They wanted the gala photos. I remembered. Elaine had posted endless photos of herself in a sequined gown, holding a champagne flute. They were the treasurers, Lily said, or Dad was. He borrowed from the fund. Anna. My blood ran cold. Borrowed. That was the Patterson word for theft. How much? I asked. $50,000. Lily said, maybe more. He thought he could put it back before the fiscal year ended. He used it to pay off the car and the credit card so they could get approved for the new condo lease. But then the investments he made with the rest of it tanked. And now the audit is coming. I said, next month. Lily nodded, tears spilling over. If the money is not in the account, it is embezzlement. It is prison. Anna. Real prison. Not just a lawsuit. I sat back. The puzzle pieces slammed together. This was not just about maintaining a lifestyle. This was about staying out of handcuffs. So that is where North Pine comes in. I said. Lily nodded miserably. Wesley told them he could fix it. He said if they could show a consolidated family asset portfolio, meaning your penthouse, he could get them a private bridge loan. High interest, short term, enough to refill the charity account before the auditors look. Then they would pay off the loan over time, using my equity as collateral. I said, yes. And what about you? I asked. Where do you fit in? I am just the excuse, Lily said. The bridge loan requires a multi-generational residency clause to qualify for the specific product Wesley is selling. They need me living with you to trigger the loan type. I am the bait. Anna. She began to sob. Quiet. Hiccuping sounds that made people at the next table glance over. They told me if I did not do it, if I did not help them get the loan, Dad would go to jail, and it would be my fault for not helping. I reached across the table. I did not take her hand. I placed my hand flat on the wood, offering a stable point. It would not be your fault, I said firmly. It is his fault. He stole the money, but he is Dad. She wept. I looked at my sister. She was 26, but she was trapped in a childhood dynamic that was eating her alive. She was being asked to mortgage her soul to cover her father's crime. Lily, listen to me, I said. She looked up, her face blotchy. I am not going to let you move in, I said. She flinched, looking down. I know. But, I continued, I am not going to leave you on the street. I will pay for an apartment for you, a studio, in your name only. I will pay the rent for 6 months, and I will pay for a financial counselor to help you handle the eviction judgment. Her mouth opened slightly. You? You would do that? Yes, but there are conditions. What conditions? You do not tell Mom and Dad where you live. You do not give them a key. You do not sign any papers they give you. And you tell them, to their faces, that you are not moving into Skyglass. I do not know if I can. She stammered. They will scream at me. Let them scream. I said, you have a choice. Lily, you can be their human shield for the rest of your life, or you can be a person. Which one do you want to be? She looked at me. For a long moment, I saw the terror in her eyes, but underneath the terror, I saw a spark of exhaustion. She was tired of running. I want to be a person, she whispered. Then drink your tea, I said. We are done here. I walked home feeling lighter, but the weight of the coming storm was heavy. My parents were cornered animals. They were facing prison. They would not stop because I said no. They would only stop if they were neutralized. I called Mara Quinn as I walked. The audit explains the desperation. Mara said when I told her, embezzlement is a felony. They are looking at 5 to 10 years. What about Wesley? I asked. Does he know? He knows. Mara said, that is how he hooks them. I dug deeper into North Pine. Wesley targets families in legal trouble. He offers these consolidation loans at 60% interest. He knows they cannot pay. When they default, he takes the collateral. He is not trying to save your parents. Anna, he's trying to steal your penthouse. He likely has the foreclosure papers already drafted. He is a predator. I said, he is a vulture. Mara corrected, but vultures are scared of loud noises. I need to make a loud noise. I said, I have something that might help. Mara said, I found 3 other families in the state who used North Pine. 2 of them lost their homes, but one of them, they sued. The case was settled out of court. Sealed records. But I found the plaintiff. She is willing to talk to you. Off the record. Get me her number. I said, the next morning, Devin and I met with Celeste in the management office of Skyglass. I laid it out for her. Not the emotional story, but the risk assessment. My parents are desperate. I said, they have attempted fraud. They have contacted my employer. I believe they may attempt a physical confrontation in the lobby or at my door to force entry. Celeste nodded, her face serious. She tapped her pen on the desk. We can increase the perimeter, she said. I will instruct the concierge to flag their names and photos. We can disable the elevator access for any guest pass not issued directly to your device. And I can have a security detail stationed on your floor for the next 48 hours. That seems dramatic, I said, feeling a flush of embarrassment. I am just a project director. Celeste, not a diplomat. You are a resident. Celeste said firmly, and you are paying for peace. If you do not feel safe, We are not doing our job. Besides, she hesitated. What? I asked. Mr. Bell in 1504 told me what happened with your father at the door. She said, he said your father was aggressive. We do not tolerate aggression here. Ms. Patterson, high net worth does not mean high tolerance for abuse. Thank you. I said, I need to ask one thing. I said to Devin and Celeste, I am going to invite them here. Celeste's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me? One last time. I said, a controlled meeting. I need to end this, and I need to do it on my terrain. If you invite them. Celeste said slowly, you are overriding the security ban. Yes, but I want them escorted, from the lobby to my door. And I want security standing outside the hallway. Celeste looked at Devin. Devin nodded. It is a settlement conference, Devin said. We need to serve them with the reality of their situation. It is safer to do it here than in public where they can cause a scene, or at their home where Anna is vulnerable. Okay, Celeste said. Give me the time. I will have my best guys on shift. Tuesday, I said. 7 p.m. I sent the email. Mom, Dad, come to the Penthouse on Tuesday at 7 p.m. We will discuss the living arrangements and the finances. Lily will be there. This is the final discussion. I did not promise to say yes. I just promised to discuss. To them. It would look like I was cracking. It would look like the pressure from the HR call and the smear campaign had worked. They would think they had won. Grant replied 4 minutes later. Glad you are finally seeing reason. We will be there. I spent the weekend preparing the trap. I hired Tessa Lang. She agreed to arrive at 6:30. I worked with Devin on the documents, the cease and desist for North Pine, the formal notice of non-residency for my parents, the offer of the studio apartment for Lily, but I felt like I was missing something. I had the legal shield. I had the security, but I did not have the smoking gun. I knew they were planning to use me, but I needed to prove they had been planning it for a long time. I needed to show them that I knew their love had been conditional for years. Monday night, the evening before the confrontation, Marisol came over. We ordered Thai food and sat on the floor of the living room, surrounded by the silence of the city. Are you ready? She asked, spooning curry onto her plate. I am ready to be an orphan, I said, because that is what is going to happen. When I refuse to save them from prison, they will disown me. Better an orphan than a victim. Marisol said. She looked at the coffee table. The fountain pen was still there. The black lacquer shone in the dim light. The gift from the fake trust. You still have that thing? Marisol asked. I kept it as evidence. I said, it is ironic. A pen to sign my life away. Marisol picked it up. She twirled it in her fingers. It is heavy, she said. Like, really heavy. It is expensive, I said, or a knockoff of expensive. She frowned. She held it up to the light. Then she started twisting the cap. Not the way you open a pen, but twisting the clip itself. I think this is loose, she said. She pulled. The clip didn't come off, but the top finial, the little black dome at the top of the cap, rotated. She twisted it. Click. What was that? I asked. Marisol pulled the top of the pen. It slid out. It wasn't just a cap. It was a housing. Inside the barrel of the pen, hidden beneath the ink reservoir, was a tiny metallic slot, and inside the slot was a micro SD card. I stared at it. The room went silent. No way, Marisol whispered. She pulled the card out with her fingernail. It was the size of a pinky nail, black and red. I ran to my office and grabbed my laptop. I had a card reader in my dongle. I plugged it in. The drive mounted. Family_archive. I clicked it open. I expected to find photos, maybe sentimental blackmail. Instead, I found folders. Folder 1, IDS and vital records. Folder 2, templates, banking. Folder 3, templates, medical. Folder 4, Anna_signature_samples. My heart hammered against my ribs. I clicked signature_samples. It opened a gallery of images, scans of my birthday cards, scans of checks I had written them years ago for groceries, scans of my high school diploma, and at the bottom, a Photoshop file. I opened it. It was a transparent layer of my signature, cleaned up, sharpened, and ready to be dropped onto any PDF. They had not just forged my signature on the Skyglass form, they had digitized it. They had manufactured a rubber stamp of my consent. I went back to the main folder. I opened templates, banking. There were drafts, dozens of them. Letter of guarantor, auto loan, 2020, cosigner application, condo lease, 2018, authorization for credit inquiry, North Pine, 2023. Some of them were dated years ago, some were recent. I realized with a sick, vertiginous lurch that they had been doing this for a long time. Every time I thought I had helped them with a check, they had used the opportunity to harvest more data. They had built a shadow version of me, a version of Anna Patterson who co-signed everything, who approved every inquiry, who was the silent partner in their financial ruin. They had given me the pen not as a gift, but as a storage device. They were scared of the audit. They were scared of their own house being searched, so they hid the evidence in the one place no one would look. My house, the house of the daughter they owned. I felt Marisol's hand on my shoulder. "Anna," she said, "breathe." I inhaled sharply. The air felt cold. "They stole me." I whispered. "They did not just want my money, they stole my name." I looked at the screen. The evidence was absolute. It was not just emotional manipulation. It was systematic, premeditated identity theft spanning half a decade. I copied the files to my hard drive. Then I copied them to the cloud. Then I copied them to a thumb drive for Devon. I put the micro SD card back into the pen. I screwed the top back on. I placed the pen back on the center of the coffee table. "What are you going to do?" Marisol asked. Her voice was scared. I looked at the pen. I looked at the door where they would walk in tomorrow night. "I am not going to yell." I said, "I am not going to cry." I stood up. "I am going to verify the signature." I said, the files on the microSD card were not just scans. They were a blueprint for an annexation. I sat at my dining table, the city of Harborgate humming distantly beyond the glass, and clicked through the documents one by one. Marisol had gone home an hour ago, leaving me alone with the digital ghost of my parents' intentions. I opened a file named draft_residency_agreement_v4.pdf. It looked innocent at first glance. It was formatted like a casual roommate contract, the kind you might download from a legal advice website. But as I read the clauses, the casualness dissolved into a terrifying precision. Clause 4.1. Shared household status. The undersigned parties, Grant Patterson, Elaine Patterson, Lily Patterson, acknowledge that the residence at Skyglass Unit PH-B is the primary family seat, and that all financial contributions to the maintenance of the household are pooled for the mutual benefit of the family entity. Clause 5.3. Authorized management. Grant Patterson is designated as the household manager, with authority to oversee utility accounts, maintenance contracts, and related vendor negotiations on behalf of the primary title holder, Anna Patterson. It was a power of attorney masquerading as a chore wheel. If I had signed this, or if they had forged my signature on it, they would have had a document explicitly stating that my penthouse was a pooled family asset under my father's management. But the next file was worse. It was labeled collateral_support_summary_northpine.xlsx. It was a spreadsheet. It listed every asset I owned: my 401k, my stock options from Kestrel Harbor, the equity in the penthouse, my savings account. Next to each asset was a column titled Liquidity Value and another titled Leverage Potential. They had calculated exactly how much debt they could wrap around my life. I scrolled to the bottom. There was a section titled Proposed Restructuring Plan. Step 1. Establish physical residency for L. Patterson, daughter 2, to trigger multi-generational household status. Step 2. G. Patterson, father, assumes management of household accounts. Step 3. Apply for Bridge Loan B7 via North Pine Equity, utilizing PHB address as primary collateral base. Step 4. Roll existing liabilities. Audit gap, $55,000. Consumer debt, $42,000. Into new consolidated facility. I felt physically sick. I pushed the laptop away and walked to the kitchen sink, gripping the cold marble edge until my knuckles turned white. It was the premeditation that broke me. I had spent the last week thinking this was a panic response. I thought the audit had terrified them, and they were flailing, reaching out to grab whatever life raft was closest. I had imagined them sitting at their kitchen table, crying, saying, "Maybe Anna can help." But this spreadsheet was not panic. This was architecture. They had sat down with Wesley Crowe. They had listed my achievements not as points of pride, but as harvestable resources. They had discussed using Lily as the trigger for step 1. They had quantified my sister's trauma and my hard work into cells on a spreadsheet. They were not drowning. They were hunting. I did not sleep. The next morning, I took the thumb drive to Devin's office. He reviewed the files in silence. The only sound in the room was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner and the occasional sharp intake of breath from Devin. When he finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "This is conspiracy to commit fraud," he said. "It is clear-cut. If we took this to the district attorney, your father would be indicted, your mother too, and Wesley Crowe would lose his license, assuming he actually has one." I sat in the leather chair, looking at the skyline. "I do not want to go to the district attorney," I said. Devin looked at me. "Anna, they drafted a plan to steal your equity. I know, but if I file criminal charges, it becomes public record. It becomes a news story. Kestrel Harbor director sues parents for fraud. My name gets dragged through the mud. My professional reputation becomes defined by this drama. And Lily gets called as a witness against her own father." "So what is the goal?" Devin asked. "I want them gone," I said. "I want North Pine gone. I want the debt gone from my doorstep. And I want to make sure they never, ever try to use my name again." Devin nodded slowly. He understood. He was a lawyer for the wealthy. He knew that sometimes silence was more valuable than justice. "Okay," he said. "We use the documents as a guillotine, not a grenade." He pulled a legal pad forward. "Here's the strategy. We do not show them everything. We do not tell them we have the micro SD card yet. We keep that as the nuclear option. Why? Because if they know you have the files, they might panic and destroy other evidence, or claim you stole the pen. We save the files for the moment they try to lie." He drew a line on the pad. "First, we draft a legal affidavit for you to sign. A declaration of sole ownership and non-residency. It states clearly that you have never authorized any family member to live with you, that you have no shared accounts, and that any document claiming otherwise is a forgery. We file this with the county clerk. It puts a cloud on your title that specifically blocks any North Pine lending attempts. Second," he continued, "I send the cease and desist to Wesley Crowe. I attach the spreadsheet, just the spreadsheet. No explanation, just the file and a note that says, 'We are aware of the scheme. Withdraw immediately or we forward this to the State Banking Commission.'" "And third?" I asked. "Third is your meeting tomorrow night." Devin said, "You confront them. You strip away the emotional narrative. You show them that the family rescue is actually a financial crime. You force them to retreat." I nodded. It was clean. It was surgical. "One more thing," Devin said. "You need to write something for yourself." "What do you mean?" "You are going to be in a room with people who have manipulated you since you were a child. They know your buttons. They installed them. You need a shield. Write down the history, not the legal history, the personal one, the loans, the lies, the times they made you feel small. When they start gaslighting you tomorrow, and they will, you look at that paper. You remember what is real." I spent the afternoon writing the statement. I sat in my office with the door closed. I opened a blank document. Timeline of financial and emotional boundary violations. Age 19. Student loan disbursement. Dad asked to hold my semester living expense check for safekeeping. When I asked for it back to buy books, he said he had used it to pay a family emergency bill. I spent the semester working double shifts at the library to eat. Age 22. The car lease. Mom asked me to co-sign for a car for Dad because his score was temporarily low. They promised to make all payments. 3 months later, the collection agency called me. My credit score dropped 100 points. Age 25. The investment opportunity. Dad pressured me to invest my first bonus from Kestrel into his friend's vending machine business. He called me selfish when I hesitated. I gave him $5,000. The business never existed. Age 30. The cousin's wedding. Mom told the extended family I was refusing to pay for my cousin's flight, creating a family rift. When she had actually never asked me, she used the rumor to isolate me until I wrote a check to smooth things over. The list went on. It was pages long. As I typed, I felt a strange sensation. I expected to feel angry. Instead, I felt validated. For years, I had carried a vague, heavy sense of guilt. I felt that I was a bad daughter, that I was stingy, that I was cold. But looking at the list, I saw the truth. I wasn't cold. I was exhausted. I had been an ATM machine with a heartbeat for a decade. I printed the list. I folded it and put it in the inside pocket of my blazer. I would not read it to them. They did not deserve to hear it. It was for me. It was the steel plate over my heart. Lily moved out of the hotel that afternoon. I had reached out to a contact at Harborgate Women in Leadership, a professional network I had joined years ago. The director, a woman named Sarah, had connected me with a member who owned a block of furnished corporate apartments downtown. It was not a shelter. It was a bright, modern studio on the 6th floor of a secure building. It had a view of the park and a concierge who knew nothing about the Patterson family. I met Lily there with the keys. She stood in the center of the room, holding her small suitcase. She looked around at the gray linen sofa, the clean kitchenette, the bed with crisp white sheets. "I do not have to ask Mom if I can sleep here?" she asked. Her voice was small. "No," I said. "The lease is in your name. I paid the first 6 months. But you are the tenant. You have the only key." Lily walked to the window. She touched the curtains. "I feel like I'm doing something illegal," she whispered, "being here, without them knowing. That is the conditioning." "Lily," I said, "they trained us to believe that independence is betrayal." She turned to look at me. She looked tired, but for the first time in weeks, she did not look hunted. "Thank you, Anna." I handed her a folder. "This is the name of a financial counselor," I said, "and a lawyer who specializes in debt defense. They are paid for. You have an appointment tomorrow morning. They are going to help you answer the eviction lawsuit and separate your name from Dad's schemes." Lily took the folder. She held it to her chest like a shield. "He is going to be so angry," she said. "When he finds out I am not moving into the penthouse, he is going to be angry." I agreed, but he is going to be angry at his own reflection, not at you. I left her there, unpacking her few belongings. As I walked down the hall, I heard the click of the deadbolt sliding home. It was the best sound I had heard all week. When I got back to the office, the charm offensive had begun. An email had arrived from Elaine. Subject: Moving forward. Resolution and unity. I opened it. It was jarring. My mother usually wrote emails in all caps with excessive exclamation points and emojis. This email was written in 12-point Times New Roman. "Dearest Anna, we have been reflecting on our recent interactions and wish to express our regret for any friction. Our intention has always been to foster a spirit of mutual benefit and family synergy. We understand your need for autonomy. However, we believe that a formalized resolution regarding Lily's housing will provide the necessary stability for all parties to thrive. We look forward to finalizing the details of our cooperative arrangement tomorrow evening, with love and hope for a unified future. Mom and Dad." I laughed out loud. A dry, humorless sound. Mutual benefit, synergy, cooperative arrangement. These were not Elaine's words. These were Wesley Crow's words. He had coached them. He had probably typed it himself and had them hit send. He was trying to create a paper trail of good faith negotiation to counter the hostility I had shown at the restaurant. If this ever went to court, he wanted to look like the reasonable party trying to help the family, while I looked like the obstructionist. I forwarded the email to Devon. Add this to the evidence pile. I wrote, it proves third-party interference. Then, the second shoe dropped. An hour later, a new email arrived. This one was from Wesley. Crow at North Pine Equity. Com. Subject: attendance at family meeting. Miss Patterson, I have been informed of the family discussions scheduled for tomorrow evening at your residence. Given the complexities of the financial restructuring we are proposing for your parents, I believe my presence would be beneficial to explain the technical details and ensure all questions are answered transparently. I will accompany your parents to facilitate the agreement. Best, Wesley Crow. He was trying to force his way into my home. He wanted to be in the room to control the narrative, to bully me with jargon, and to make sure Grant didn't accidentally confess to the fraud. I called Devon. Shut it down, I said, already typing. Devon answered. 5 minutes later, Devon sent the reply, copying me. Mr. Crow, I represent Anna Patterson. You are not invited to her private residence. Any attempt to enter the Skyglass property will be considered trespassing and reported to security immediately. Furthermore, my client declines any restructuring proposals from your firm. If you continue to solicit her participation in any financial instrument, we will file a formal complaint with the State Attorney General regarding harassment and predatory practices. Govern yourself accordingly. Devon Sharp, Esquire. The response from Wesley came 20 minutes later. It was short. The mask of professional politeness had slipped. Mr. Sharp, it is unfortunate that Miss Patterson is choosing to obstruct a necessary family solvency plan. Please be advised that her parents' financial situation is critical. If this consolidation does not proceed, the fallout will be public and severe. We are simply trying to prevent reputational damage that would affect all members of the Patterson family, including those in high-profile positions. I read the screen. Reputational damage. It was a threat. He was saying, let us steal the equity, or we will let your father's embezzlement scandal explode and take you down with it. I felt a cold rage. Let it explode, I whispered. I am fireproof. Tuesday came. I left work early. I went home to the penthouse. I began to set the stage. Usually, my apartment was warm. I had soft lighting, throw blankets, fresh flowers. I stripped it all away. I folded the blankets and put them in the closet. I turned off the warm table lamps and turned on the overhead recessed lighting. It was bright, clinical, and unforgiving. It threw sharp shadows against the walls. I removed the flowers from the island. I removed the bar stools, leaving only the 4 hard-backed dining chairs around the table. I wanted the room to feel like a boardroom. I wanted to strip away any sense of home. This was not a daughter hosting her parents. This was a property owner hosting a negotiation. I placed a pitcher of water and 4 glasses on the table. No wine, no food. Breaking bread created a bond. I wanted clear air. At 6:30, the intercom buzzed. Ms. Patterson, the concierge said. Ms. Lang is here. Send her up. Tessa Lang stepped off the elevator a minute later. She was a woman in her 50s with silver hair cut in a sharp bob. She wore a black suit that looked expensive and severe. She carried a leather portfolio. Ms. Patterson, she said, shaking my hand. A pleasure. Thank you for coming. Tessa, I understand the parameters, she said. Walking into the living room, she looked around at the stark lighting. I see you have set the stage. Very tactical. I need them to understand that this is business. I said, and my role? You are the witness. I said, you are here to facilitate the discussion, but mostly, you are here to prevent them from rewriting reality. When they say they never asked for money, I want you to look at the documents. When they scream, I want you to ask them to lower their voices. Tessa nodded. The presence of a neutral third party usually dampens histrionics. People hate to lose face in front of strangers. Exactly. I went to the coffee table. The pen was there. I picked it up and placed it in the center of the dining table, next to the pitcher of water. "What is that?" Tessa asked. "That," I said, "is the reason we are here." 7 o'clock approached. My phone buzzed. It was the concierge. "Your guests have arrived. Ms. Patterson, Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, and a Miss Lily Patterson. Is anyone else with them?" I asked. "No, ma'am. Just the three of them. Send them up." I stood by the window. I looked down at the city lights. They were beautiful. Thousands of lives, thousands of stories, all stacked on top of each other. I had fought so hard to be one of those lights. I heard the elevator gears engage, the hum of the rising car. I touched the pocket of my blazer, feeling the folded paper of my timeline. For a moment, I felt the old fear, the fear of the little girl who just wanted her mother to smile at her, the fear of the teenager who didn't want to cause a scene. But then I remembered the spreadsheet, collateral support summary. I remembered the hospital tag on Lily's suitcase. I remembered the fake trust. The elevator chimed. The door slid open. Elaine walked in first. She was wearing a new dress, something floral and soft. She was smiling, her eyes scanning the room, looking for the warmth she expected. "Anna!" she cried out, stepping onto the oak floor. She stopped. She saw the bright, harsh lights. She saw the bare counters. She saw Tessa Lang standing by the table like a judge, and she saw me, standing by the window, not moving to hug her. The smile faltered. Grant walked in behind her, carrying a bottle of wine. He saw the room, and his face hardened. "What is this?" he asked. "Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad," I said. My voice was steady. It did not shake. I gestured to the table. "Please sit down. We have a lot to get through." Lily walked in last. She looked at me. I gave her a tiny nod. She nodded back, imperceptible to them. She knew the plan. "Who is she?" Grant demanded, pointing at Tessa. "This is Tessa Lang," I said. "She is a professional mediator. She is here to ensure that our conversation remains productive and that everything we agree to is properly documented." "Documented?" Elaine laughed. A high, nervous sound. "Anna, honey, we are family. We do not need a mediator. We just need to talk. We are past talking." "Mom," I said. I pulled out the chair at the head of the table. "Sit down," I commanded. It was the first time in my life I had given them an order. They looked at each other. They looked at the door. But the door was closed, and the security guard I had hired was standing in the hallway outside. Slowly, reluctantly. They sat. I remained standing. I looked at them. They looked smaller under the bright lights. They looked like what they were. Two people who had spent their lives spending money they didn't have, and who were now terrified the bill had come due. I realized then that I wasn't doing this to hurt them. I was doing this to stop them from hurting me. The climax wasn't about revenge. Revenge would be letting them go to prison. Revenge would be screaming at them until they cried. This was about severance. I walked to the table and placed my hand on the black fountain pen. "Let us begin with the trust," I said. The room was silent, save for the low hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the wind pressing against the glass 30 floors up. The harsh overhead lighting I had installed for this meeting cast long, sharp shadows across the dining table, stripping away any illusion of warmth. My parents sat opposite me. Elaine was clutching her purse as if it contained the last of her dignity. Grant was staring at the fountain pen in the center of the table, his jaw working tight with suppressed anger. Lily sat at the far end, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the grain of the oak table. And then there was Tessa Lang. She stood near the sideboard, her presence a cool, neutral weight in the room. She was the witness they had not expected, the variable that prevented them from launching their usual opening act of tears and guilt. Grant cleared his throat. It was a loud, aggressive sound. "This is ridiculous. Anna," he said. He gestured at Tessa. "We do not need a babysitter. We are your parents. We came here to have a private conversation about family logistics, not to be deposed." I remained standing. I rested my fingertips on the back of my chair. We are here to discuss the logistics of fraud. I said. Elaine gasped. A theatrical, hand-to-the-chest intake of breath. Fraud? She repeated, her voice trembling. How can you use that word? After everything we have done for you? We are just trying to help your sister. Lily is not moving in. I said it simply. No inflection, no question mark. That is the first point of business. I continued. Lily will not be establishing residency at Skyglass. She will not be on the lease. She will not be receiving mail here. And she will not be used as a trigger for a multi-generational household loan. Grant's face turned a mottled shade of red. You do not get to decide that, he snapped. It is a family decision. We are in a crisis. Anna, a temporary crisis, and you have 3 bedrooms sitting empty while your sister is about to be on the street. It is selfish. It is cruel. She is not on the street. I said, she has an apartment. Grant froze. What? I secured a 6-month lease for her this morning. I said, in a secure building downtown. It is paid for. She has the keys. She does not need my spare room, and she does not need to be part of your loan application with North Pine Equity. I looked at my father. So the crisis is solved. I said, Lily is safe. Unless, of course, the crisis was never about Lily's housing. Unless the crisis was about the $55,000 you borrowed from the Arts Foundation. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of oxygen leaving the room. Grant looked at Lily. His eyes were wide, shocked. Then he looked at me. The anger in his face shifted into something colder, something predatory. You have been busy, he said softly. I have been thorough. I corrected. Elaine began to cry. It was her go-to defense mechanism, a weaponized sorrow designed to make everyone else in the room feel like a monster. I cannot believe this, she sobbed, reaching for a napkin. My own daughter, investigating us, treating us like criminals. We just wanted to be together. We wanted to rebuild. I did not offer her a tissue. I did not soften. I picked up the black fountain pen from the table. You wanted to rebuild. I said, that is an interesting choice of words. Is that why you gave me this? Elaine looked at the pen. She blinked, her tears pausing for a moment. It was a gift, she said, a housewarming gift. From the trust. There is no trust. Mom, I said. I twisted the cap of the pen. I felt the click of the hidden mechanism. I pulled the top free, revealing the hollow chamber inside. I held it up so they could see the empty slot where the micro SD card had been. I found the card, I said. Grant went still. His hands, which had been clenched on the table, slowly uncurled. He looked at the pen, then at the laptop I had set up on the sideboard connected to the wall-mounted screen. I extracted the files, I said, all of them. I tapped a key on the laptop. The screen on the wall flickered to life. It displayed a single image. A scanned document titled draft_residency_agreement_V4. Next to it, I pulled up another image, a high-resolution scan of my own signature, isolated on a transparent background. Elaine stared at the screen. She did not understand the technology, but she understood the implication. What is that? She whispered. That is a forgery kit, I said. I looked at Grant. You did not just want to move Lily in, I said. You wanted to create a paper trail. You have scans of my diploma, my social security card. You have templates for letters to banks, to landlords, to utility companies, all waiting for my signature to be dropped in. You were planning to turn my life into your collateral. Grant stood up. His chair scraped violently against the floor. That is private property, he shouted. You stole that. That pen belongs to me. It was a gift, I said calmly. You gave it to me, and everything inside it is evidence. Grant pointed a shaking finger at me. You ungrateful little brat. You think you are so smart with your penthouse and your lawyers? You do not know what pressure is. You do not know what it takes to keep this family afloat. I know exactly what it takes. I said, it takes theft. I brought up the next slide. It was a metadata summary of the documents. It showed the author of the files. Author: Wesley Crow / North Pine Equity Services. Date created, October 2023. You did not write these, I said. Wesley wrote them. You are not just borrowing money. Dad, you are working for him. You are helping him target families. And in exchange, he promised to make your embezzlement problem go away if you delivered me. Elaine looked at Grant. Grant, she said. Her voice was thin. You said Wesley was a friend. He is a consultant, Grant roared. He knows how the system works. And Anna is ruining it. He turned to me, his face twisted with a mixture of rage and panic. You have no idea what you are doing, he hissed. If that audit happens, I go away. Do you understand that? I go to prison. Is that what you want? You want your father in a cage because you were too stingy to sign a piece of paper? I am not the one who took the money, I said. Tessa Lang stepped forward. She had been silent until now, observing, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. Mr. Patterson, she said. Her voice was calm, professional, and startlingly loud in the tense room. Grant whipped his head around. Who asked you? I have a clarifying question, Tessa said. She looked at her notes. You stated earlier that the move-in was a temporary family arrangement due to a lease issue. However, the documents Ms. Patterson has displayed, specifically the collateral support summary, indicate a plan to use the property as a basis for a 30-year consolidated loan. She looked up over her reading glasses. Can you explain how a 2-week stay, as you claimed to the building manager, would satisfy the residency requirements for a 30-year mortgage product? Grant opened his mouth, then closed it. The lie had collapsed under its own weight. And, Tessa continued, if the arrangement was informal, why did you attempt to authorize yourself for permanent key fob access without the owner's presence? We just wanted to be helpful. Elaine stammered. To walk the dog. I do not have a dog. I said. Tessa nodded. So, she said, looking at Grant. We have a contradiction. You claim the move was for Lily's safety, but the paperwork indicates it was for asset acquisition. Which is it? Mr. Patterson? Grant slammed his hand on the table. It is none of your business, he shouted. It is my business, a voice said. We all turned. Lily stood up. She had been so quiet I had almost forgotten she was there. She was standing at the end of the table, her hands gripping the back of her chair. She looked pale, but her chin was high. Lily, sit down, Grant barked. No, Lily said. She looked at Elaine. Mom, she said, you told me Anna wanted me here. You told me she was lonely. You said she begged you to help her fix her relationship with us. Elaine looked away. Well, we assumed. You lied, Lily said. Her voice shook, but she did not stop. And you told me that if I did not sign the papers Wesley gave me, I would be responsible for Dad going to jail. You told me I had to do it to save the family. Grant scoffed. You are hysterical. Lily. Stop making a scene. I am not hysterical, Lily said. She took a breath. I am done. I am not moving in here. I am going to the apartment Anna rented. And I am not signing the North Pine loan. Grant looked at her with pure, unadulterated disgust. You are weak, he spat. The word hung in the air like a slap. You have always been weak, Grant said, his voice dropping to a cruel, low register. We carried you. We paid for your mistakes. And the one time, we ask you to step up and do something useful. You run to your sister and cry. He turned to me. And you. He said, you are worse. You are cold. You think your money makes you better than us? You are just a sad, lonely woman in a glass box. You will die alone here. Anna. And you will deserve it. The room went quiet. Even Elaine looked shocked. She stared at Grant as if seeing a stranger. The mask of the loving, burdened father had slipped, and underneath was a man who viewed his children as employees who had failed to meet their quotas. I looked at him. I felt a strange sense of peace. The guilt, the heavy, suffocating blanket I had worn since I was 16, dissolved. He did not love me. He loved what I could provide, and that meant I was free. I walked to the sideboard. I picked up a thick manila envelope. I walked back to the table and placed it in front of Grant. "This is a formal notice of no trespass," I said. Grant looked at it, sneering. "I am banning you from Skyglass." I said, "If you attempt to enter the property, security will call the police. If you attempt to contact my employer again, I will sue you for tortious interference." I placed a second document on top of it. "And this," I said, "is a cease and desist for Wesley Crowe and North Pine Equity. It includes a copy of the affidavit I filed with the county clerk this morning. It declares that I have no shared residency with you. It blocks any attempt to use my address for lending." Grant stared at the papers. He realized the walls had closed in. "You would not dare," he whispered. "I already did," I said. I turned to Lily. I handed her a separate, smaller envelope. "This is for you," I said softly. "It is the lease, the keys, and the card for the lawyer I hired to help you with the eviction judgment." Lily took it. She held it to her chest. Grant looked at the envelope in Lily's hand. He looked at the screen on the wall. He looked at the security guard standing visible through the glass door of the hallway. He realized he had lost. He stood up. He adjusted his jacket. He tried to summon the old arrogance, but it was thin, threadbare. "Come on, Elaine," he said. "We are leaving. We do not stay where we are not wanted." Elaine stood up slowly. She looked at me. Her eyes were swimming with tears. But this time, they looked real. "Anna," she said, "what about the audit? What are we going to do?" "I do not know." "Mom," I said, "I really do not know. But you cannot use my house to fix it." She looked at me, waiting for me to crack, waiting for me to write the check. I stood still. Elaine's face hardened. She wiped her eyes. "You have changed," she said. "You used to be a good girl. I am still a good girl." "Mom," I said, "I am just not a victim anymore." She turned and followed Grant to the door. Lily stayed for a second. She looked at me. She didn't say anything. She just nodded. A quick, jerky motion. Then she turned and walked out. But she did not walk with them. She walked a few paces behind, creating a separate space. I watched them go. I watched the elevator doors slide shut, cutting off the view of my father's angry back and my mother's floral dress. The silence returned to the penthouse, but it was different now. It wasn't empty, it was clean. Tessa closed her notebook. "That went as well as could be expected," she said. "Thank you." "Tessa," I said, "you can bill me for the extra hour." She nodded. She packed her bag. "You know," she said, pausing at the door, "I have seen a lot of families in this room. Usually, they scream until they are exhausted. You did not scream. I realized I didn't have to." I said, "The truth is loud enough." She smiled, a genuine, tired smile. "Good night, Ms. Patterson. Enjoy your view." She left. I was alone. I walked to the table. The pen was still there, the hollow, empty shell of a gift. I picked it up and dropped it into the trash can. I walked to the window. The city of Harborgate was spread out below me, a grid of amber and white. I could see the harbor, the dark water reflecting the moon. I thought about the smear campaign. I knew what would happen next. Grant would tell everyone I was heartless. Elaine would tell the church group I had abandoned them. But I had prepared for that, too. Earlier that day, I had sent 5 emails, one to my aunt, one to the family pastor, one to Mrs. Gable, one to the cousin in Ohio, and one to my father's golf partner. The email was identical. "Dear Name, I am writing to let you know that I recently discovered a serious issue with identity theft involving my personal accounts. Someone close to the family has been attempting to use my name and credit without authorization. I have had to take legal steps to secure my finances and my home. I am telling you this because I am worried the people involved may reach out to you with confusing or distressing stories to cover their tracks. Please be careful if you are asked for money or favors. I am safe, and I am handling this with the authorities. Thank you for your concern." I hadn't named my parents. I hadn't accused them directly. I had simply planted the seed of truth. If Grant called them now to complain about me, they would not hear a grieving father. They would hear a desperate man who matched the description of the identity thief I had warned them about. I had neutralized the narrative. I looked down at the street. I saw a cab pull up. I saw Lily get into it alone. Then I saw my parents walking down the block, dragging their suitcases. They looked small from this height. Just two people moving through a city that did not care about their delusions. I took a deep breath. The air in the apartment was cool and still. I went to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water. I drank it standing up, feeling the cold liquid hit my stomach. I was an orphan now, in every way that mattered. There would be no Thanksgiving dinners, no Christmas cards, no calls on my birthday. The grief was there, a dull ache in my chest. But as I looked around the room, at the clean lines of the furniture, the heavy oak floors, the locked door that only opened when I said so, I realized that the grief was manageable. It was the price of admission. I walked over to the wall switch and dimmed the harsh overhead lights. I turned on the warm table lamps. The room softened. The shadows retreated. It was just a room again. My room. I sat down on the sofa and pulled my legs up, wrapping my arms around my knees. I am Anna Patterson. I whispered to the empty space, and for the first time in 33 years, the name belonged only to me. Thank you for listening to My Parents Tried to Move My Sister into My New Luxury Penthouse Until They Saw What I'd Done. Writing Anna's journey was a reminder that sometimes the hardest battles we fight are not with strangers, but with the people who are supposed to protect us. I hope you enjoyed this story of boundaries, resilience, and the quiet power of documentation. I would love to know, where are you listening from today? Drop your country or city in the comments below. And if you have ever had to set a hard boundary with a family member, share your thoughts, in English, on how you handled it. Please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories for more tales of justice, drama, and turning the tables. Until next time, keep your receipts and guard your peace.